Welcome to another podcast of Mad in Love. If you're new here, I'm Dr. David Hawkins from the Marriage Recovery Center. You may be familiar with some of our podcasts that we've done where we do Dr. Hawkins Reacts, which we're going to do again today. We have some past episodes where I have responded to Jonathan Glover as he has read posts from Quora and Reddit. But today we're going to do something a little bit different. We've invited our producer, Katie Buckley, to join us and Jonathan to help share some posts that she's found. So, Jonathan, you get to be in the hot seat with me today. Are you ready? So this is kind of cool. You and I both are going to respond to Katie. So are we ready?
Ready as I can be. There's not much to prepare.
Okay. All right, Katie, take it away.
All right. So today we're going to be reading some stories on Reddit, and a lot of it is themed around creating boundaries or communicating boundaries. The first post was posted just 5 hours ago, and the title of it is, "Would I be the a-hole if I effectively make my ex homeless?" So here's the story. The poster's name is Safe Calligrapher. My ex and I split over 2 years ago. He's been unemployed for a few years now. Since he's been unemployed, I've been carrying him financially. I'm getting ready to move in with my boyfriend, but my ex has been trying to get a job and move out for a while, but I haven't seen any work on this. All I see him doing is play video games, watching movies, or working on projects that don't make him any money. The initial plan for the move was that if my ex couldn't find a place separate from me before I got a place with my boyfriend, that he could come and stay in what will be my craft room for a few weeks so he could figure something else out. All my friends say it's not my responsibility to take care of my ex. He uses my car that I got months after we split and doesn't respect even the most basic requests that I have in regards to maintaining my car. If something breaks, even if he's the one who breaks it, he expects me to fix it. The story kind of goes on about some car issues.
We're cringing right now, Katie. We're trying to listen. I can read Jonathan's face here. This is cringeworthy, but go ahead and continue it. Like, I'm having a hard time holding it together. Go ahead and keep going.
I thought you might have a strong reaction. So she goes on to talk about how her car was broken into and it was destroyed, and there was a little bit of blaming between her ex and her on whose responsibility it was. And then it ends with, "My boyfriend thinks that this is the final straw and has decided that he doesn't feel comfortable with someone that acts that way moving in with us. Also, my boyfriend is encouraging me to use the money I've saved to buy a newer car because the broken car is already a ticking bomb. It's not worth spending the time and money to try to fix it. And my boyfriend is pushing me to tell me that my ex is not allowed to use the car or have a key. If I tell him he's not moving in with us and that he can't use my car, he really doesn't have any other options, and it'll make him homeless."
Not true. Keep going. Sorry. I'll be good.
I feel awful about it, but I also feel like if I keep this up, he's just going to continue trying to get more. So that's her post. So what's your reaction?
Wow.
Besides cringe.
Jonathan, do you want to take the first shot at it, or do you want me to go?
Her current boyfriend sounds very patient. And I don't know exactly why.
Call it enabling, but... Jonathan. Call it enabling.
Yeah, the codependency dynamics here be strong.
Yeah, in the field of psychology, we've all studied the notion of enmeshment. So the opposite of good boundaries is called enmeshment, where your stuff is my stuff is your stuff. I care about you, you care about me. I'm going to take care of you. You're going to try to take care of me. And it's just a nasty, nasty mess when that happens. I think what you were getting at, Jonathan, I agree with you. I mean, why is the boyfriend not screaming and going, this is nuts. I didn't sign up for a 3-way relationship here, and I don't want to be a part of this. One more thing I will say, and that is the X, come on, there's a notion also called personal responsibility. Personal responsibility goes like this. You're responsible for your life. And so I can't make you be homeless. I can't make you be carless. I can't make you be broke. I can't make you be anything. You got one thing like I got, and that is a life. And you're responsible for your life. I'm responsible for mine. So this is three people who are totally enmeshed with each other. And by the way, that is a recipe for absolute craziness. And I'm betting all three of them feel crazy. And it's what any of us feel when we don't have good boundaries, when we don't stay on our side of the street. Jonathan, what do you think about all of that yammering?
Oh, absolutely. I think that I'm imagining that the length of time that this has gone on for has only exacerbated the problem, and it has oftentimes that's what happens, is that we don't let people know what the boundary is, or we don't take action and kind of set a firm line because we are nervous or anxious or scared for that conversation. But avoiding that discomfort oftentimes just makes the dynamics down the road much more complicated and difficult. And actually, the future conversation becomes even bigger.
There's so much confusion about the topic of boundaries. Every day when I'm doing counseling, and I'm sure you have this experience too, Jonathan, people think they are clear. They think they are setting boundaries. And so I'll say to, often it's a woman, because we get so many calls from women that are frustrated, but she will say to me, oh, yeah, no, I've been really clear. I told him I didn't like that. I've told him I didn't like that 1,000 times. And I say, yeah, that's not a boundary. That's a complaint. It's a complaint and it's worth something, but not worth much. So you can complain and complain and complain and complain, and there's no power in it. There's no effectiveness in it. So people need to step up and understand, look, a boundary is clearly articulated, it's clearly defined, and then most importantly, it's enforced. There are consequences if you cross this line in the sand. And if there's not consequences, it ain't a boundary. It's a complaint. It's you're voicing something, but it has no power. It has no effectiveness. So this woman, back to this woman, my goodness, and this man, actually all three of them need to read some things about boundaries, and they need to practice setting boundaries and getting on their own side of the street.
I agree with most of what you say.
What?
I have us. I know it's crazy. I have a little bit
Okay.
of a different take on boundaries. I
Okay.
talk about them a little bit differently. I agree with the line needs to be clear, but the clarity is for the person with the boundary, and also the consequence. I think is also for the person with the boundary. So the question I always say is, are you safe? Do you feel secure? And are your needs being met? And if the answer is no to any of those questions, then what are you going to do about it? And it's your responsibility to do something about it. And I think that's a little bit of what you're getting at. But what we're talking about in abusive relationships is people who do not respect your boundaries. And you can, in a healthy relationship, I can tell my wife, like, hey, I'm not comfortable talking about this topic. Either I'm too tired, or it's really uncomfortable for me right now. Let's talk about this later. And in a healthy marriage, my wife is like, okay, thank you for letting me know where you are. But what we're talking about oftentimes with clients is abusive relationships, and doing that healthy thing of letting people know what your boundary is doesn't work with somebody who's abusive and manipulative. And that then the question is not how can I get him to or her, but usually what we're talking about here is how can I get him to respect my boundaries? And really the question should be, what are you going to do about it? Because he's not respecting your boundaries.
Well, Again, I'm going to follow your lead. I don't know if I fully agree with you.
Yeah,
So this will be good.
elaborate.
So when you say this other person, often a man, won't respect her boundaries, I tell me if you agree with this. I would suggest to you that there really hasn't been a boundary set. So in other words, if a woman, this might be a typical thing. If a woman says, in fact, I'm working with a couple right now, and the woman is going to say to the man, "Look, I will listen to a complaint that you have if you effectively problem solve with me about it. If you don't, if you just poke at me and provoke me, I will stop the conversation." Now,
Mhm.
presumably, he won't go, "Oh, yeah, honey, great, super duper." He might push and push, and she will have to say, "Yeah, no, I'm stopping this conversation." So she will enforce the boundary. And if he does it again, she will have to set a firmer, higher boundary. And if he does it again, she may have to back away even more or whatever. So do you agree with that? Or
Well, I agree that boundaries, um, most of the time, and in a healthy marriage, and when you're talking about two people in a relationship, I agree that it is most effective to talk about your boundaries and talk about what you're comfortable with and not, and talk about safety, and to talk about your needs in the relationship. I don't think it's a requirement, though. If my wife does something crazy, like she commits a bunch of felonies, I don't have to. I can just react to it. I don't have to have already told her about what my boundary was ahead of time in order to do something about it. I also think
true?
boundaries can change. Boundaries don't have, a lot of boundaries are consistent, but boundaries can change. If I wake up my wife at 2:30 in the morning because I'm upset about something that really doesn't need to be discussed right now, and she says my boundary is I need some sleep, I don't want to talk about this right now, then yeah, that's where she is right now with the conversation. But if I talk to her at 2:30 in the afternoon, she might be totally receptive to the conversation.
Do
So
you
I,
agree? Do you agree if you said to her at 2:31, I want to talk about this is urgent. I want to no, I insist that we talk about this. Do you agree with me that it's her responsibility to say no? It won't happen. It will not happen. So it cannot happen by you walking away. It cannot happen by you respecting my sleep, or it cannot happen by me leaving this room, or it cannot happen by me leaving this house, or it cannot happen by me leaving this I mean, it
yes,
will go as high as it needs to go, sir. But
exactly.
get it clear. We are not talking about it. I am going to sleep. So, and
And I think I
that's her
agree,
job.
and I think it's important to clarify that on one hand we're talking about needs in the relationship, needs in that moment, and on the other hand we're talking about boundaries. So the needs, I have a need to talk to my wife about this thing. I have a need for emotional connection or support, whatever is going on with the topic. She has a need for sleep, because of working tomorrow or whatever. So those are needs. And I think that some of the challenge in a relationship or in a particular conversation is to identify what the needs are and then say, you know what, your need right now takes priority. I can wait. I can wait on my need and talk about it tomorrow. If I can't, if I am so insistent, or if I always demand that my needs are met right now, then yes, that I am crossing her boundary. And then it does become her responsibility to say, here's what I'm going to do about it. Because I do need sleep and I am not going to talk to you right now.
There's another notion. Do you agree with this? Probably my favorite. I've got about 10 favorite bumper stickers. This is in my top 10. We teach people how to treat us. Do you believe that?
Mm.
In other words, I and your wife in that situation would be informing you. She'd be saying, "Look, Jonathan, love you, wonderful guy, want to stay married to you. I am going to get sleep. Please be clear about that. We're not going to have this conversation that you want to have. I understand that you want to have it. We're not going to have it. So I'm going to teach you right now. She wouldn't say this language, but she's essentially informing you, here's how I'm going to be treated. I'm going
Right.
to be respected, and that is going to happen. You can cooperate with it or not cooperate with it, but it is going to. So we teach. Do you agree with that bumper sticker that we teach?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think generally speaking, yes. That's um, and I think that the example that you were using, talking about it explicitly is really helpful. So we might not have ever come up with a situation where we're trying to have a conversation, or I'm trying to have a conversation at 2:30 in the morning. But maybe the next day, or maybe right then, she says, "Hey, by the way, I'm also in the future, I expect that I'm never going to want to have a conversation at 2:30 in the morning."
Right.
And that, talking about that boundary and talking about the expectations and respect for each other and each other's needs, that's really important to do.
I want to highlight what you just did, because those are called critical conversations, and every couple needs to have a critical conversation. Those, those stake posts in the relationship. That was beautifully done, Jonathan. Where she would say, "Look, I expect going forward, we won't be having conversations of any serious nature at 2:30 in the morning. I want you to know that. So I love you, want to stay with you. You're a cool guy and all that kind of stuff. But this is not going to be woven into our future." So,
Right.
and if couples will have those kind of critical conversations and really have them, I mean, just come on, let's get, my wife and I have had probably half a dozen critical conversations, the kind where you, like, my eyes go like, okay, she is serious. Like, okay, this is, Christy, you mean business here. We're going to do this in a different way, or else. And like, and my eyes get wide and I tingle, and I know this is an important moment in the Hawkins marriage. And, and I've had them with her too. Like, Christy, look, anyway,
Yeah,
critical conversations.
absolutely.
Hey, let's toggle back to the three people.
Yeah.
I am presuming that these three people, as much as it was cringeworthy to hear it, and I hope I'm not being disparaging about these three people. I'm imagining they've just been living this way. This is the norm for them, to be in, you called it codependency, everybody in everybody's business, and nobody doing that thing of, hey, you get on your side of the street, I'll get on mine. You take care of your business, I'll take care of mine. They haven't done that. And so many of the couples that come to us, their boundaries, it's just everybody's in everybody's business. And tell me your experience with that. Do you see that with couples where they just lack definition, the kind of definition that you and your wife modeled when she said, "No, we're not having this conversation at 2:30 in the morning." These
Yeah.
these three people are opinionating each other. That's not a word, but it should be, by the way. They're opinionating each other, telling each other, "You ought to this, you need to that, you need to this, you should that." And it just becomes chaos.
Yeah.
Anyway, speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked with a lot of clients who I think the situation as it stands currently is a product of a long time, years
Yep.
of doing things a certain way, and a lot of
Yep.
times it's redefining. One of the partners in the relationship is redefining what it means to be a husband, or what it means to be a wife, or what their needs are in the relationship for whatever reason. It might be um, change of religious values or faith. It might be talking with friends, or just time, and realizing, like, actually that I have not been getting my needs met, and I now want to. But what we're looking at is the years and years of doing it in a particular way, the conversation now is a big conversation. It's not just responding to this one incident of this thing. It's years or sometimes decades of doing it in a particular way where one person seems to be just fine doing it that way and the other is becoming increasingly not okay with doing it that particular way.
That's so well done, Jonathan. I think that as clinicians, counselors, therapists, I think we have a responsibility of saying to these folks, these three people, these are long-standing patterns, and they're not going to work for you. They're not.
Yeah.
And I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but if you keep doing things this way, if you keep speaking for each other, talking, opinionating each other, trying to run somebody else's life, trying to take all of these patterns, if you keep doing that, do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And so I think we have a responsibility. I'd love to hear you speak to that, though. How and when do we say that to this couple that comes to us and we say, or these three people, and we look at them and we say, look, you guys, I've got some leadership to give you, but it's going to really hurt. Many things that you're doing are going to create ongoing chaos. And if you'll follow me, I'll help lead you the way out of the wilderness. But there's going to be some brambles and some briars and some sticks and you're going to get cut up a little bit getting out onto the main path. So
yes.
Thoughts about that?
Well, it's interesting as Katie was reading the post, I couldn't help but sort of imagine her ex as her young adult son who was living in the house and who didn't want to get a job, just kept on wanting to play video games. And you have these two perhaps mature adults that are trying to live their life, and then this mooch who is living with them. And I think that that's often what I see is dynamics with adult children and kind of similar dynamics. And the question is, how do I give them my values and teach them something about life with consequences and natural consequences, especially, without being enabling in the process. And by the way, I also, she didn't mention exactly what the nature of their relationship was, but for some reason I'm imagining that the two men have some sort of relationship, or they could have some sort of, maybe they were friends, maybe they're brothers, I don't know. But going back to what I said about earlier, that he seems very patient with him in the situation. I imagine that maybe there's more to the situation than we are aware of.
I'm reacting. I reacted the first time you used the word patient, and I'm reacting again.
It's sarcasm. Sorry.
Okay. Because I was wondering if you really meant that.
No, it's enabling.
Okay.
And I think that I would imagine that if we spoke with him, that he likes this woman and wants the relationship and is perhaps struggling with his own boundaries and communication with her about really how concerning these dynamics and behaviors are.
I want you used another word that I would like you to unpack, and the word is enabling. And it's an uncomfortable word. It's uncomfortable for me to share it with a client when I say to them, you do understand, don't you, that you are fostering all of this chaos. You're literally fueling the chaos. Oh, no, Dr. Hawkins, no way. I hate it. Well, you may hate it. You may have that feeling of hating it, but everything you're doing, or most of what you're doing, allows it to continue. Much like if I use the analogy of looking out at the highway and I'm watching all the traffic go by, and I'm not suggesting we should go jump in the middle of the traffic, but we're watching it. We're witnessing it. We're seeing it. And we don't do anything to disrupt it. And that's another word that people are really uncomfortable with, disruption. I don't want to have to, I mean, if I don't enable it, it's going to affect my pocketbook. Yes, it is. And my kid, yeah, your kid, yep. And my home, yeah, your home, everything will be disrupted if you decide to not enable. But please take responsibility. You're fostering all of the chaos. Do you buy that? Or are you going to disagree with me again?
Well, I wouldn't want to say that the enabler is responsible for all of the chaos or the addiction or the codependent dynamics.
No,
But
I'm not saying that.
really, the enabling is definitely it's sort of an unconscious or a non kind of an indirect way of saying this is okay. The way that we're doing it, I'm gonna allow it to continue, even if I'm verbally saying something different. I worked a lot in my past life in the addictions world, and we see the enabling dynamics a lot with addictions, because on one hand, we're not okay with the behavior, and we're not okay with the addiction, and we're not okay with what the other person is doing to their life and their health and their relationships. And we can see a lot of times a steady decline. And at the same time, we love the person, we care about them, and we don't want them to, in a lot of times, really, when it gets to that point, when with addictions, we're talking about really serious health problems, death. So we don't want that. And so, okay, I'll give you money for groceries this week, even though I know there's a really good chance that the money is going to go towards feeding your addiction instead of feeding your body in a healthy way.
So this notion of enabling, back to, I find it really challenging to confront the enabler. They've got all kinds of reasons. So this woman, you can imagine, back to this woman, she must be riveted with fear of, like, oh my goodness, the ex is going to live in a car, the ex is going to be broke, the ex is going to this or that or that or that, and I can do something about all that, so I'll allow the ex to come and live with me or whatever. And it's uncomfortable for me as a clinician to say, you're I agree with you that they're not responsible for it, but she fuels his irresponsibility, right? She is, so she has some stake in that game. She's allowing it all to continue, and the boyfriend is allowing it all to, everybody's allowing it all to just keep going. And I think I find myself in the role of a person who says, you need to rock the boat. And when you rock the boat, you're going to take on water, and it will be scary, but remember why you're doing it. Remember there's an ultimate good here. Everybody will become healthier and happier. And
So, as a
what do you think about
therapist, for both of you, Dr. Hawkins and Jonathan, would you advise this poster to have this conversation with her ex on her own, or would her current boyfriend and her have a united front and present the information together and confront the ex?
I have a strong reaction that Jonathan may disagree with. I think it's her job. I think it's her job. Okay.
I agree. Unless there is,
her job. If she pawns it off, if she kind of says to the boyfriend, hey, look, will you go help me? I think the boyfriend should say, no, absolutely not. This is your job to do this, and I'm looking at you to do it. And by the way, if you don't do it, I'm going to be upset with you. I'm not going to be happy with you. I need to, back to your three questions, this boyfriend would say, I need to feel safe, I need to feel secure, and I have needs to feel protected and have good boundaries in this relationship. I want to have a relationship with you and you alone. It's your job to do it. Jonathan, what do you think?
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree. Unless there is some other dynamic going on, like if let's say they're cousins or brothers or something like that, then maybe that would need to be addressed. But barring that type of situation, I completely agree with you.
All right.
In fact, I think that it sends it strains the relationship with the current boyfriend to be putting him in a position where he is now the enforcer of what she wants or
A bad
her
dynamic.
boundaries.
Bad dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to fall apart in the future, and that no. Come on, she needs to step up and
It usually comes from
Yeah.
a fear. You know, you don't speak up about your boundaries. You don't speak up about your needs because of a fear of whatever the response or what this means for the other person or whatever. And so you want to be able to share that responsibility or give that responsibility for the conversation to somebody else. But it goes back to kind of what I was saying originally. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel secure, if your needs are not being met, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
And taking that one step further, and this is, my goodness, I presume that you would agree this is why we love our work. We can challenge her to go deeper here. We can say to her, yeah, you're afraid. Let's talk about it. Tell me all the things that you're afraid about. It's okay. Well, I'm afraid that he'll be home. Yeah, let's talk about that. And I'm afraid he'll get mad at me. Yep, let's talk about that. And I'm afraid my boyfriend will. Yep, let's talk about that. Let's unpack it all, and let's walk alongside your fear. And this gets a little esoteric to talk like this, but this is good growth stuff for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is exciting. It's kind of fun to grow up.
There's a dialectical behavior therapy skill called burning bridges and building new ones, and it's usually discussed more in addictions work with addicts. But the idea here is burning bridges means removing unhealthy, harmful elements from your life. And if that means certain relationships, sometimes that's the reality of it. That's what it means.
Okay. What a robust conversation. I always learn something here, which is kind of cool. I'll keep showing up, Jonathan. All right. Thank you so much, Jonathan and Katie, for being with us today. This has been really exciting. I'm sure people are gonna really appreciate some of the concepts that we unpacked. As always, if any of this resonates with you, please know we are available to help. You can learn more about Jonathan Glover and the work that he does and by visiting our website at www.marriagerecoverycenter.com. And if you enjoyed today's show, please give it a 5-star rating and be sure to subscribe to our channel to be notified of new episodes. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk again soon. Take care. God bless.